Title: After I refused to fund my son's luxurious wedding, he cut me off. Days later, he invited me to a peace dinner. When I arrived, 3 lawyers were waiting with legal documents. Start. I remember the sound of the pen clicking. It echoed in that silent dining room like a trigger being cocked. 3 lawyers sat across the table, their suits crisp, eyes blank. My son leaned back in his chair, a smirk dancing on his lips, and said, "Sign them, or you'll never see your granddaughter again." He thought he was in control. He always did. I didn't flinch. I reached into my purse, calmly pulled out my phone, and said into it, "She's ready." Then I placed the phone face down on the table. The smirk faded, just a little. There was a time when that boy, my only son, used to hold my hand as we crossed the street. He would squeeze it tight, trusting me completely. I raised him alone after his father's death, worked 3 jobs, sold jewelry, cooked for others, skipped meals so he wouldn't have to. Every sacrifice, every tear was an investment in his future. When he grew older, he stopped holding my hand, but I didn't mind. That's what mothers do. We let go. Then came her. A woman who wore diamonds like armor and spoke as if she were auditioning for a part she already owned. The first time I met her, she didn't call me Ma. She called me Mrs. Rahman. That told me everything I needed to know. The wedding plans came next. Extravagant, unnecessary, obscene. He wanted chandeliers imported from Italy, a venue that charged per flower, and a gold-embossed invitation that looked like a stock certificate. He asked me for money. No, he expected it. When I refused, he didn't argue. He just smiled and said, "Then don't come." I didn't, but I watched, from afar. They posted everything, her in her crystal gown, him dripping in arrogance. And then silence, for months, until that peace dinner invitation arrived. I should have seen it sooner, the cold politeness, the distance, the careful words over the phone. But when you love someone, you mistake disrespect for stress and manipulation for maturity. It wasn't until my lawyer, yes, my lawyer, called about an irregular transfer request that I realized how deep his betrayal ran. He'd tried to move my property title into a family trust under his name, a trust he created, signed with my forged signature. I sat in that office, staring at the papers, the same numbness crawling up my spine that I felt when I first saw his father's death certificate. But grief was one thing, betrayal was something else entirely. That day, I didn't cry. I started planning. It began with quiet steps. My bank accounts, my will, my shares, all locked, protected, transferred to a foundation, one with his daughter's name on it. Every lawyer he'd ever used, I met with them, one by one. Money has a way of shifting loyalty, especially when it's promised to the next generation. Then I turned my attention to his new wife. She was reckless, loved to flaunt what wasn't hers yet. So I gave her something to flaunt, information, a rumor really, that the prenup had a secret clause making her ineligible for inheritance if caught in an affair. She panicked, and panicked people make mistakes. Now back to that dinner. I remember the room vividly. White walls, silver cutlery, the faint scent of jasmine and deceit. He looked older, colder. Beside him, one lawyer slid a folder toward me. "Power of attorney," he said, "for your peace of mind." My son's voice was soft, almost rehearsed. "Mother, this is just so we can manage things easily. You're getting older. We just want to help." Help? That word again. I smiled. Of course. Then I made the call. The door opened before anyone could react. A woman in a gray suit stepped in. My lawyer, followed by 2 police officers. "Mr. Rahman," she said, placing her files on the table, "you're under investigation for attempted fraud and forgery of legal documents." The blood drained from his face. He stammered something about misunderstanding, about love, about family. I didn't say a word. The officers handcuffed him. His wife screamed. The lawyers froze, their rehearsed professionalism collapsing. When they were gone, I took the folder he had slid across the table, folded it neatly, and dropped it into my purse. My lawyer leaned in and whispered, "You handled this perfectly." I just nodded. It wasn't rage that filled me that night. It was clarity. He had tried to erase me, not with a gun or words, but with paperwork. He underestimated the woman who built his entire life from nothing. The next morning, the news broke. Prominent businessman arrested in fraud case involving elderly parent. It spread fast, faster than his arrogance could recover. His wife left him within a week. Her family disowned him. The accounts he thought were his? Frozen. The companies he used my name for? Seized. All legal, all quiet, all mine. A month later, I visited my granddaughter's school. She ran into my arms, eyes bright, innocent. "Grandma," she said, "Daddy's on TV." "I know," I told her softly. "He's learning a lesson." That night, I sat by the window, tea in hand, watching the city lights flicker like fading stars. I thought about how love turns into something unrecognizable when entitlement poisons it. But I didn't feel regret. I had spent years building a life for him. Now I was rebuilding one without him. My revenge wasn't loud. It was written in ink, executed in silence, and sealed with a mother's final mercy. I didn't destroy him completely. I left enough pieces for him to recognize what he'd lost. Before I went to bed, I took out my phone and looked at his last message. "I hope you're happy." I typed back, slowly, deliberately, "I am, finally." Then I turned off the phone and slept like someone who'd just signed her own freedom.